Good morning. Today we're going to continue on with our lesson for day 2 using completing the square to solve quadratic equations. Yesterday we focused when a was 1 or there wasn't a number in front of your x squared. Today we're going to talk about what to do if there is a number out in front, a leading coefficient. Okay, so just to review from yesterday, we're trying to use the perfect square trinomial so that we can solve by using square roots. The formula you need to memorize was half of b squared. The one thing that is different today is we need to focus on the second term. If there is a number in front or a leading coefficient, we need to divide everything by that number before we complete the square. So the most common mistake that I see here is students will try to complete the square and then they do something with that number. We have to get rid of it before we can do anything else. Okay, all the other steps are the same. So let's go through a couple problems. Okay. Step 1 actually tells you to move this number first, and the reason I tell you to do that first is because sometimes you have to combine like terms. So you should have an equation that has your x squared, or in this case p squared, and your p on the same side, but we want all of our constants on the other side, so that negative 63 needs to move over. What we did yesterday is we would get to this point, we would take half of b and then square it, and we would add that to both sides, but we can't do that with this here, okay, with that 3 out front. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide everything in this problem by 3. Okay, so instead we are now dealing with just p squared minus 6p, we'll fill in that blank in a second, equals negative 21, and then that blank. Okay, so now instead of using negative 18 for our b, we're actually going to use negative 6. It makes a pretty big difference. So half of negative 6 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is positive 9. Remember, no matter what you do, when you square something, you will always end up with a positive. In this case, so you should never have a minus 9 there, or minus any number. So we're going to go ahead and factor. In our shortcut here, we got a negative 3 when we divided by 2, or took half of our b. So we have p minus 3 in our parentheses squared equals, and then this gives us negative 12. And then we can solve from there on out. Okay, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I do need to simplify this. So if you think back to simplifying radicals, negative 12 is the same as negative 4 times 3. So the square root of negative 4 is 2i, and then the 3 is going to stay inside the square root. And then our last step is to add 3 to both sides. And that would be your final answer. Okay, only thing that changes is after I move those constants over, I have to divide, and then I can complete the square. So the next problem, a little bit different order here, a little different setup. Let's make that an x so we have the same variable. We're going to add 12x to both sides to start, so that I have my x squared and my x on the same side, and my constant, which is negative 9, on the other side. And then before I can complete the square, again, I have a number out front. It happens to be 3 again. We're going to divide everything by 3 to get rid of that. Okay, now we can complete the square. So take half of b. My b now is 4. So half of 4 is 2. And then 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Okay, factored form here should be x plus 2 squared equals 1. And then we're going to take the square root of both sides to unsolve this. Okay, this time the square root of 1 is positive 1 or negative 1. So we're going to break this into 2 equations. I'm going to go sideways with this. So I have x plus 2 equals 1. And x plus 2 equals negative 1. So the first answer is negative 1, and the second answer is negative 3. Okay. So again, the steps are all the same. Only difference is in that problem, if there's a number in front, you need to divide by that leading coefficient to start with. Okay, go ahead and try these two. When you finish, discuss with a partner, make sure everybody's in good shape there, and then go ahead and start your homework. Have a great day.